Once your students have completed their quiz attempts, you may have the need to manually grade some of the questions. I'm here on the quiz screen, and you'll see next to a particular quiz item, there's a published column. The number on the right is the number of students who have completed attempts, and the number on the left is how many of those attempts have been published so that students can see the score, and the scores have been transferred to the grade tool. So if we have to manually grade, you can select the menu next to a particular quiz and go to the grade option. On this screen, you'll see a list of all your students who have completed attempts. And there's two different ways that you could potentially go in and do the manual grading. The first way is just to go student by student. You'll see under this student, if I click on their first attempt, I can review all of their questions, all of their answers, and what the system auto-graded when possible. So there are a few questions that the system tries to auto-grade, but I still think that we would have to manually do a double check for, and that includes short answer, which is the first question here. So the question was, what is the most western province in Canada? And when we created the question, we really tried to come up with every possible variation that a student might answer. British Columbia, BC, B, period, C, period, British Columbia. But somehow this student found another correct variation that we just hadn't included, and that is B space C. The system tried to auto-grade, but it didn't get it right. So in this case, we could manually grade and provide that student with a score of 1. Scrolling through, you can see eventually we'll also find our written response style question, describing your own words, and we can see the student's response here. When we created that question, we decided it would be out of 5 instead of 1. And you can put decimals here if you wanted to. Finally, there was one more of the short answer questions here. This one actually had 3 different blanks. When we created this question, we talked about the danger of allowing students to fill in blanks without a specific order. We tried to teach the system some of the correct possible answers for each of the blanks, but we actually didn't get through all the different possible letters in this case. So they answered a correct letter that wasn't on our list, so I actually do want to give them the full mark for this as well. When you're finished manually grading all of the questions for an attempt, you have the ability to either publish or save draft. If I click publish right now, then that would release this final score for the student to see, and it would also transfer that value over to the grades tool. If instead I wanted to save all of these manually graded attempts as draft, then when I return to the user attempt list, I can basically bulk publish them by selecting the box on the top left column and clicking the Publish Feedback button. The other workflow that I want to show you for manually grading is not on the User tab, which is where we are now. Instead, it's over on the Questions tab. When you're over on the Questions tab, you have the ability to go into a particular question and see all of the responses from your students organized together. So in this case, we knew that there was a written response style question that all students would have to answer. So I can actually click on that, and you would be able to page through all of the different student responses for just this question. And as you provide them with scores, it applies those scores to the totals with the associated student. So in some ways, I think this is a smoother workflow for you, grading a particular question at a time, because you have that question in your mind and what a correct answer would look like, etc.